This episode of I Work for Him is brought to you by SaferNet, online at safernet.com.
Every day in America, more than 3,000 ministries are serving workplace believers by discipling Christ followers to live out their faith in their work. However, most of these organizations are working on their own, often recreating the wheel from their limited resources because they don't know there are others out there doing exactly the same thing.
I Work for Him has a vision to document the tapestry of the faith and work movement to enable and facilitate selfless kingdom collaboration across the country and bring harmony to the body of Christ in the workplace.
For more than a decade, God has been weaving the stories of workplace believers and the work of so many faith and work ministries into I Work for Him. He's been entwining us with these organizations so that you, too, can be a part of this great tapestry.
He's been connecting us in order to connect you.
Just like a tapestry, the work is sometimes messy and takes time. But in the end, a beautiful, unified picture emerges, more incredible than we could ever imagine. Please be a part of that mission.
You've tuned into I Work for Him, the voice of collaboration for the faith and work movement.
We are your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and our mission is to inspire every workplace believer to recognize their workplace as their ministry place, where they work with God every day. What can that look like in your workplace? Well, let's find out right now.
You know, after a long Christmas vacation break, it's back to work we go. Are we ready to live out our faith vibrantly at work, loving our work neighbors as ourselves, even in the midst of the pressures and stresses of work? Have you made that transition to recognizing your workplace as your mission field, your place of ministry? 2025 is the year of the mobilized body of Christ, impacting people everywhere in our country with the love of Jesus and reintroducing them to the Creator, Almighty God. But what about when we get home? Does your faith impact how you live in your neighborhood? Do you even know your neighbors? I mean, not just their names, but know them, their kids, their hobbies. Do your neighbors know they can count on you in a crunch? You know, it's one thing to live out your faith in your family, and one thing to live out your faith at church, and then one thing to live out your faith at work. But we all need to come full circle and love our neighbors when we come home after a long day at work. And that's the topic of today's I Work for Him episode. Martha, we've had some neighbors that weren't too easy to love over the years, haven't we?
Oh, man, you're going to start right there.
I'm jumping right in. Because Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbors as yourself.
Yes, I think that everyone can relate to having a difficult neighbor. I'd love to think that every neighbor we've ever had has been easy to love, but that's not the truth. Sometimes we've had to work really hard to love our neighbors.
Yeah.
Is that what you wanted me to say?
Well,
you weren't looking for specifics.
To be honest?
No, but you weren't looking for specifics.
No, I wasn't. Yeah,
okay.
Name them.
I'm just making sure.
Okay. You know, I mean, we've lived in several different neighborhoods. We lived in an apartment when we first got married. Actually, lived two different apartments when we first got married. We lived with my parents. They were some of the toughest neighbors ever. And we've lived in just some fantastic neighbors. Got to meet some phenomenal people. I mean, truly the greatest experience that we had was that 20 years we lived in Florida in the same neighborhood. You know, we focus almost all of our episodes, though, Martha, on living out our faith at work. But rarely do we talk about after work, about living in our faith when we get home and on weekends. You know, it's pretty easy to let our guard down after work when we pull into the driveway and we're just tired and we just don't want to see people. Some of us, we've had long commutes. I mean, there was 5 years where I drove 90 minutes to work and 2 hours coming home.
Right.
I didn't want to talk to people. I just wanted dinner.
You were hangry. No, you know, yes, it is easy to change once maybe we've had to be our very best self while we've been at work all day, and then we get home and the neighbor's garbage can is out, or their animal pooped on your lawn, or, whatever it might be. And, that is not the time to let your guard down and to it's really important that we're always reflecting Jesus. That is, I guess, what I'm trying to say. I think about the fact that, Jim, we often talk about on I Work for Him, the idea that, the people we work with are our neighbors. We spend so much time
Absolutely.
neighboring the person that you have meetings with or the person that you work down the hallway from. But the truth is, our neighbors, our actual physical neighborhood neighbors, need to be a priority in our life as well. And so what do you think of when you think about people coming home at the end of the day and maybe they've had a rough day and they don't want to see anybody, but you can tell, like, your neighbor, like today, they maybe needed to have their driveway shoveled and they didn't get a chance to do it or something like that. Like,
thank goodness the sun was strong enough here in Missouri to melt most of the driveways. But yeah, I mean, it's, I could just think about how I felt coming home after a long day. And sometimes you just don't want to talk to people. And you don't even want to, even when you come in your house, you don't want to talk to people. But the deal is that your neighbors know there's something different about you and they expect you to act differently because they know you're a Christian.
Well, let's start with maybe your neighbors should know that about you.
Well, if you're disappearing Sunday mornings, they're probably figuring out you're not going to the bar, that maybe you're going somewhere else. And it should come up in conversation somewhere that you go to church. That at least opens up the conversation. But a lot of people go to church and it doesn't impact them. But if somebody knows that you're a believer, they're going to expect something different from you. They're going to expect a different kind of behavior from you. And our neighbors need us.
Okay.
What?
So let's talk about that.
Well, I was talking about it. Okay. No, it's fine. Go ahead.
So what do you think is the best way for us to start building that community? If we've not done that in our neighborhood, how can we love on our neighbors?
Well, it starts with a little couple of things.
Okay.
First, we need to actually know our neighbors' names. And I'd like to say that I'd like you to start with, this is a good one to Pastor Charlie. Hats off to Pastor Charlie.
Yes.
Get to know the neighbor in front of you, next to you, on either side, and behind you.
Yes.
And then start learning the ones kitty corner. But get to know the neighbors' names. How do you do that? Well, you bake cookies. Like you did in the old days.
It is the answer to most
situations.
situations.
It is the international language of friendship. Fresh cookies. Anybody can make fresh cookies because anybody can buy Pillsbury Doughboy dough and put it on a cookie sheet. But you might have a wife like mine and she just makes cookies herself.
But any form of something that you can put on a
give
plate.
Your neighbor.
Okay.
And just say, hey, we're Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We live kitty corner to you across the street. We just really wanted to say, hey, we're really sorry we've been lousy neighbors. What's your name?
Yeah. And one thing, Jim, when we have done that in the past, I've written it on a card and given it to them so that they, you don't have that awkward,
hi,
like
we're Jim and Martha Brangenberg.
our
We're sorry for being lousy neighbors.
Our name and our phone
number. Oh, you give them like our contact information.
So that they can, you don't be like, oh, I have to write all that down real quick. It's like, okay, here is some information about us. And you're right. Just even if you've lived next to these people for years, just say, you know what, I just baked these and I just really felt like I wanted to share them with you and get to know you and let you know that we're here if you need anything. Well, simple.
Keeping it simple, but understanding that not everybody will be responsive, but almost everybody is, they're respectful of the cookie.
There you go.
Cookies are the international open love language.
But
a food language.
I can't imagine anybody throwing that contact information away. I can't.
No, you never know when you might need it.
And so they're going to...
For instance, my friend Joe. So about a year and a half ago, I met my neighbor Joe. He came over to our garage sale.
Too.
Well, he was, okay.
Our neighbor.
He was our neighbor Joe. And we met him at our garage sale. We had a garage sale. We were getting rid of some of the stuff we dragged from Florida to Missouri. We paid to put it in a moving truck so we could sell it at a garage sale.
Yeah.
And we met Joe and I gave him my card. I said, boy, if you ever need it. He was just lived across the street. And I said, if you ever need anything, let me know. About 2 hours later, Joe calls, Jim, grab your 6-foot ladder. I need you now. So I grabbed my 6-foot ladder and I ran over to Joe's house and I ran through the front door and there's Joe hanging from his balcony, desperately needing a ladder under his feet.
And if he hadn't had your business card in his pocket, we don't know what would have happened.
But so I think one of the best things...
But it started a great relationship. I want to finish the story because it started a great relationship. And Joe then made us food to thank us for helping him. And ever since then, it was like, hey, Martha, do you have this spice? Or, hey, I made this and I have this extra thing I want to share with you. And, just created a sweet little relationship there, and all
We
because
miss Joe. He moved to Oregon. It's
yes.
sad.
But communicating through Facebook, so that still works. But, that's the kind of thing we're talking about, though, is just take that time
Right.
to get to know them. Even if you go buy a pound cake at the grocery store and slice it up and put it on a plate, it's okay. But get in front of them and just say, hi, I am your neighbor, and I want to get to know you.
But if you go to the store and you buy a Sara Lee pound cake, do they actually weigh a pound?
Oh, my goodness, you're very
You
philosophical
may need to
tonight.
add strawberries and whipped cream on top to make them tasty.
Okay.
All right. Now, I think the best thing we've ever done to build community is,
A potluck.
I was going to say we need to take a break and talk about SaferNet first. But,
Okay.
a potluck. Absolutely, the potlucks that we did at Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, were the best idea ever. We always did one right before everybody went home for the summer because people think it's hot in Florida, so they go home to other places where it's hotter. But we did a potluck, and we did it in our garage or in our driveway, and we just had people did it. And then we also then did kind of a potlucky gathering New Year's Eve
Yes.
and let people just come over and hang out. Just opening up your house speaks loudly. Now, not everybody came. And some people said, Jim and Martha, are you okay if we bring our own wine? We're like, yeah, because you're not going to get it at my house. So it's fine. Bring your own beer if you want to bring beer.
And you know what was
I'll have Mountain Dew.
What was
All
fun about the
Mountain
New
Dew you
Year's
want.
Eve was that we were able to use the idea that, well, who wants to be on the road driving
Yeah.
on New Year's Eve out with other people that might be too festivitousness or whatever you call it, having too much festivity in their life. So anyway, that was kind of the way of saying, like, let's
Festivitiness?
have a neighborhood gathering where
Yes.
nobody has to drive
And
anywhere.
you can walk home hammered.
So those were just some things that we've done.
absolutely.
We've not done it perfectly, and I think we can talk about that in a minute. But go
So
ahead and
speaking
talk
of
about
great neighbors, your computers are under attack all the time. People are constantly trying to get it at you. I had like 3 or 4 emails today telling me that my Microsoft account was expiring. Not. I also had a couple of text messages saying, hey, you need to log into this place and because the people are lying to you all the time. How do you know? How do you know if you're clicking a real link or a bad link? Well, that's why we use SaferNet on all of our computers, all of our devices. SaferNet has web filters. It has web filters. It has antivirus. It has a VPN, virtual private network. And if you click on a link and it doesn't go where it says it's going to go, SaferNet blocks it. It keeps you from being stupid. We use it on everything on iWork and everything Jim and Martha. You should use it too. And tell them Jim and Martha told you to do it. Safernet.com, safernet.com.
So it's like they're being good neighbors to us, taking care
They're
of us.
phenomenal neighbors. So in Marionville, I know we know our neighbors' names,
Yes.
but have we done a great job of engaging our immediate neighbors yet? We haven't done a potluck. We've lived here 2.5 years, no potlucks.
We tried, and we had one
Epic
all
fail.
scheduled, and then the weather was super crazy that weekend, and everybody kind of freaked out, and we're like, yeah, we're not having this
That was
potluck.
a year and a half ago. Sorry to,
It was. I'm not denying that we have not done a great job in our little neighborhood right now. However, 2 of our
However.
immediate neighbors are family. So we do spend a lot of time with the family neighbors.
I don't know that really counts.
Oh, it definitely counts.
Oh, it counts.
Yes.
All right. So, but what's really cool is that one of our neighbors, who I've prayed with several times, he works over the road. He builds ice roads in Alaska and the Yukon. One of his kids got baptized at church the other day, and they all came to church. And of course, they were comfortable because they knew us. We were there. So that was really cool. And a couple times I preached at other local churches, and neighbors have come to hear me preach.
Yes.
So that's been fun, but we still need to do the potluck. We got to get it on the calendar for once the snow melts.
Well, we had this, I'm not making excuses. I just need to find a better way to do it because we don't have the under the roof space to have.
We have a really great garage now.
We do.
We have a great garage. We also have our office building that we rehabbed.
So what you're saying is all the listeners should not make excuses either, right?
No.
We've got to find a way to
Don't
get past.
be like Martha and make a bunch of excuses. We've got a building we rehabbed. In fact, you should check out the link on our website. Check out Central Place and the place we're rehabbing here in Maryville, now called The Gathering. Those are QR codes. Are they on the website?
So just go to iworkforhim.com/central place. I can put that in the show notes as well. But then you can kind of see some of the rehab work that we've been doing here and next door in our buildings, and just walk along with us on this crazy journey of rehabilitating old spaces.
Yeah, old spaces. All right. So we got to know our neighbors. We haven't brought them cookies, but we've gotten to know our neighbors here in Marionville and a lot of other people. I mean, it's a small town, so you
We've
get to
had
know a lot of
neighbors
people.
bring us cookies.
Yes, we have. And every week, one of the neighboring things we do for people here in Marionville, Missouri, is we have a podcast. You might want to check it out. It's called the Good Place Marionville Podcast. Good Place Marionville on YouTube, or Good Place Marionville on Facebook. It's not on podcast platforms right now, but it talks about all the good that's going on in Marionville, and Martha and I are the hosts. So it's a lot of fun just connecting with people, and we interview people from town. Let's share a little bit of the story of what's good going on. It's not specifically spiritual based, but it's all about good, and it's not gossip.
That's a good point, Jim. And it really, in a small town like we live in, kind of everybody's your neighbor. And so it's
Won't you
really
be my neighbor.
It's really about like getting to know what's happening in town, what's good, who to be paying attention to, what's, whatever might be happening in the schools, things like that. So that is one of the beautiful things of a small town. But I know for a lot of people, they have neighborhood areas where they live.
Right.
And really, how can you focus on your neighborhood? Yes, Jim?
And something we've really learned about being a great neighbor in a small town is, there's volunteer fire departments in 95% of the towns across America. That's a great way to be a great neighbor, is join your volunteer fire department. I got to do that recently, last year in 2024, beginning of the year, as a chaplain, and I've been learning how to be a firefighter for the very first time in my life. Every boy grows up wanting to drive a fire truck. I get to do that now. And I get to play with the sirens. And when you're driving a fire truck down the road at 60 miles an hour with the sirens going on, people just part the ways. Not in Florida, but here in Missouri, they actually pull over for you. It's actually very cool. And it's a great way to serve our neighbors. I've had a lot of opportunities to pray with people who are in crisis, which is a lot of fun.
Well, even just protecting their property, Jim.
Right.
I mean, you're actually
I climbed on a roof at 2:30 in the morning
doing some of the
once.
amazing neighboring things.
All right. Well, one of the really cool things we've got an opportunity to do, and not everybody's going to have the opportunity to do this, is we moved into an old town. Started 170 years ago, so figure that out. That'd be 1854. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of old buildings. And Martha and I just fixed one up for our offices for I Work For Him, the international headquarters of I Work For Him. And then we bought another one. And we're fixing that up to be the gathering, to create a place for people to just be able to gather and have a cup of coffee and maybe get some books and gifts. And there may be another one we'll tell you about on a future episode. But we're loving on our town by investing who we are in this town. And that's a lot of fun. So we've been preaching. Martha's been playing piano and singing in our church. She's done nursery, which I won't do. But I went on medical calls, which I don't like to do either because it might involve needles.
Well, and volunteering for our local festival is
right?
something
Apple
else.
Fest.
I feel like that's very neighboring because that's really, the epitome of a town is their festival.
That's right.
And
small towns.
I think
Some
big towns have them. Big towns have them too.
If you ever really want to have some fun, come to Marionville, Missouri, the third weekend in September and enjoy Apple Fest.
There you go. And we'll even host you.
That's right. We will. Absolutely will.
We will. We'll make cookies.
Oh, yeah, we'll give you cookies. Okay.
I don't know. You've been talking about cookies a lot.
All right. Well, speaking of cookies, I got a great deal for you.
Okay.
We talk all about neighboring, both in I Work For Him, the book, and I Retire For Him, the book. And what's a practical way to really put your faith into action as a neighbor, not only to your neighbors at work, but your neighbors you live next to at night and on weekends. Mm-hmm. We'd encourage you to get a copy of our book. But we encourage you to get an incredible deal. We got books in stock, and when somebody buys it off Amazon, Amazon just prints it. So we've got books in stock. We'd like to make a deal. Buy a copy of I Retire For Him or I Work For Him for yourself for $50 and get 9 extra copies included in the price. Just pay for shipping. And we'll send you 10 copies of I Work For Him, all signed by both of us, and you can give them out to your friends in your small group and talk about how to be a neighbor. Because Jesus said, the number one commandment, he summarized the law and the prophets in 2 sentences. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. That's how Jesus summarized the entirety of the law and the prophets. How are we doing? All right. So,
Okay, so our deal is buy
Our
one
deal.
book for $50 and get 9 more free. All you have to, and you pay the shipping.
that's right.
So what a deal!
That's an incredible deal. And we'll sign
that's a nice
all of
little
them.
twist on there, Jim.
We'll sign them all for you, and the money will go to a good cause. Just loosening up some of our inventory, and you will not be disappointed. Martha's dad wrote his stories of living out his faith and his work and faith in retirement inside of our books. His name is Ted Haynes, and his stories are hilarious, just incredible stories. You're going to love reading these books. They are not boring books because you've listened to our podcast. You know, we're not boring.
Okay, so let's talk about
All right,
some
what are some of our goals? What
for
are our goals for
2025.
loving on our neighbors?
What are some of our goals, Jim?
We recently took over the control of an old thrift center. That's the third building we're going to work on, and it's full of old thrift stuff. We're going to buy a bin for $10.
Well, we're not really sure all the particulars, but
Okay, but we're going to have
a sale.
We're going to have an incredible sale and bless a ton of people with all the stuff that's inside.
So what you're saying is that's a way to love on our neighbors.
By giving them great
is
deals on stuff.
By allowing them to get stuff at a good
All right,
price.
but I really think we need to plan the potluck.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe we do a
I-
car wash. No, potluck.
It's winter.
Well,
You're silly.
This would be an ice wash. Come over.
My car
We'll
today
spray your
did not need any extra water on it.
We'll spray your
It
car
was-
with water so you won't be able to open the doors tomorrow morning.
Okay, so let's talk about other goals though, because we have met neighbors but not gotten to spend much time with them.
So we're doing this. We have a teeny little kitchen. We live in a little house on the prairie. So Martha, what are we going to do so we can have more people over for dinner?
Well, we're trying to reconfigure our kitchen so that we can have more people sitting down around the table in the inclement
Down
weather
around the
when you
table
can't be
with
out
our
in
friends
a.
we're gonna eat. Join us.
Wow, we have a little sing along going.
We're recording this.
We're
a little
kind of a
later
little
in the day.
relaxed
Yeah,
tonight.
We're
This
recording
is
this a little
funny.
later it's nighttime. It's
is
late at night.
nighttime.
We're recording this. We've never done this before, but we thought it'd be fun just to try.
Hey, it's a new year. You know, I was thinking about I work for him. This is not too much off topic.
Are you sure?
I work for him. It's going to be how old this year, Jim?
12 years old
That's
on
like
April
a
the 13th.
preteen. I was thinking about that.
I act
we're
like
not
a
quite
preteen all the time.
We're not quite teenagers yet, but it's a preteen. So
12
a
years
12-year-old.
and over 3,000 produced podcasts.
Oh, it's crazy.
Under many different names. All right, but our goals, potluck, garage sale, big garage sale. Because you garage sales, your nosy neighbors always come over.
Your kind neighbors.
Your nosy, kind neighbors want to come over and see who you are. You know what you really want to do? Put your house in the market and meet all your neighbors because they want to come over and see your house. I'm just kidding.
But then you're losing your neighbors.
Well, you don't have to
if you're
sell it.
actually
Just put it
married.
on the market so you can meet all your neighbors. What else are we going to do?
Well, what are some things like in general that okay, so we talked about at the beginning of the show. People can start by getting to know who their neighbors even are, get
By
their
name.
names. You know, I remember, Jim, when we were
Kids'
new
names.
in a neighborhood,
Pets' names?
we had in your toolbox in the garage a pad of paper, and we filled in this little map that we made as somebody would walk by and they'd be like, "Oh, my name is so and so." We'd be like, "Okay, remember to write that in the map," so that we could remember it. Because when you're new, that's overwhelming
It is
to start to
overwhelming.
keep track.
So, names,
So if you've never done it,
husbands, wives, kids, if there's at home, get to know their pets' names. Because really,
they're going to end up in your yard eventually.
they are.
So
Here's what's funny. Martha's sister Mary and her husband Gary, they meet people, they got 2 dogs. And Gary walks the neighborhood with the dogs, and that's an instant conversation starter.
you know that people that have dogs already know that, right?
Okay, but we don't have pets because
But we're not getting a dog just so we can meet
Can
our
we get one of
neighbors.
those stuffed ones that walks on?
No.
No.
That's okay. So lots of ideas for how you
but
could
get a pet. Walk your pet.
Take that first step and just get to know their name. Introduce yourself and then take it from there and just say, "Lord, what is it that I can do to further this relationship? And what do you want me to do?" And don't push your way in, but just be graceful and kind and considerate. Maybe it's pulling in their garbage when you take in your garbage can after it's been picked up. Don't wait for them to get home and take in their garbage can.
Shovel their driveway if it's full of snow.
Shovel it.
Offer to watch their house when they go away on vacation.
Water plants.
Yeah.
Pick their tomatoes for them if they happen to have 10,000 tomatoes.
Only you, Martha, have
Oh, okay.
10,000 tomatoes every year. All right, but how does this fit in with the conversation of working with God versus for God? Well, here's the deal. God loves all of your neighbors just as much as he loves you. And he expects you to love all your neighbors just like he loves all of them. So when you're loving on your neighbors, even sometimes when they're not very lovable, you're doing you're working with God. And if you love on your neighbors, even if they're not always receptive, when they have a crisis in their life, you're going to be able to be there for you because you're the first call they're going to make. You might not know a lot of people. You might not have really deep relationships with your neighbors, but if they know that you're a believer and they know that you care, when they have a crisis, you're going to be the first one they call because they know that they can rely on you because you're different. They may say, because you're religious, and you don't have to argue with them that night and say, I'm not really religious. That's okay. You
can just take it.
That's right. And then explain to them later.
I had another idea.
Okay. As we close out the show, Martha's got a final idea.
Once you get their name, look for them on social media somewhere where you can connect with them because
You mean stalk or actually connect?
No, connect.
Okay.
Most people aren't stalking.
Well, I mean, people think they're connecting when they're actually watching somebody else's Facebook. That is not connecting. That's just watching.
You can get to know people that way.
You can get to know them, but you have to engage them in contact.
Hey, this is my idea.
Okay, sorry. Sort of sorry.
What I just was going to say is if you friend them or follow them or whatever it is, then you can get to know what's important to them. So it gives you some points of contact. It also gives you a way to message them that might be, for a lot of people, that's a little less threatening to be. I've gotten many messages from neighbors saying, hey, have you seen our dog? It's missing. Or, hey, did you know that this was happening? Or did you see this? Or whatever it might be that they have a question on or something. That's just another point of contact that does give you the opportunity to get to know them better so that you kind of know what their interests are. If you see, on the weekend they were camping, now I know why they were gone and maybe I should tell them I can watch their house. Whatever it might be, it's just going to help you to get to know your neighbors a little bit better.
A lot of great ideas, but the bottom line is we need to love our neighbors. We need to love our work neighbors. We need to love our neighbors, the ones that we live next to on nights and weekends. And here's a great way to get started. Buy all the people in your small group a copy of I Work For Him. Actually, just buy yourself a copy of I Work For Him or I Retire For Him for $50 and get 9 copies free. And then just pay for shipping, and we'll get those to you, and you can give them out to your friends. You can't even go to Subway for 4 people for $50, and we're talking about changing your life with incredible stories, incredible content, connections to incredible ministries, and really getting to hear our life story in both I Work For Him and I Retire For Him. Go online to iworkforhim.com/bookstore, right?
Yes.
And then you can get a copy. Buy 1 for $50, get 9 free.
Awesome. We hope that this gives you some new perspective as you look in the new year and you're thinking, what can I do different this year? One of the ways, simply be obedient to what the Lord says and to love our neighbors.
You've been listening to I Work For Him with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace is our mission field, but ultimately, I work for Him.
This episode of I Work For Him is brought to you by SaferNet, online at safernet.com. Business owners, listen up. Criminals and search engines do not need to know everything you do on the internet. SaferNet VPN ensures your company's safety with its powerful cybersecurity defenses. Explore the Control Center dashboard for seamless management. Shield your workforce from inappropriate web content using 84 internet filters. Trust SaferNet VPN, your path to worry-free online operations. Get secured now. Sign up at safernet.com. That's safernet.com.
Did you know that God has a calling on your life? It's true. He's called you to bring Jesus to the world. For some, that may look like a pulpit or a foreign mission field, but for most of us, it looks like a construction site, a cubicle, a hospital, or a classroom. Wherever it is that you work, live, volunteer, and invest, that is your mission field. To learn more about integrating your faith into your work and retirement, check out our books, I Work For Him, She Works For Him, and I Retire For Him by going to iworkforhim.com/bookstore.
Thanks for listening to the I Work For Him podcast with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work For Him Nation, or subscribe to our weekly blog. You can also follow us on social media at I Work For Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's at I Work For Him and online at iworkforhim.com. I work, the number 4, him.com.